Hello, it's me again, psychologist Yulia Latunenko, with a new topic. You often ask me during streams, and my clients are interested in this during individual consultations, how not to attract narcissists into your life. Because we all know that when a narcissistic person enters your life, it ceases to be peaceful. It can develop in a very dramatic way. So in order not to attract a narcissist, the first thing to realize is that a narcissist in your life is a consequence of the fact that you experienced childhood traumas, that you still have an immature structure of your personality, and that you need to work on what happened in your childhood. There is no other way here, because narcissistic people are merely a consequence of our codependency. And we know that codependency is an underdeveloped psyche. It is the psyche of a person who has not crossed the adolescent barrier. The second thing you need to do is start forming your own boundaries. Narcissists never stay long with people who have a sense of their own boundaries. With people who can track where their boundaries are being violated and quickly say, no, stop, you can't treat me like that. Therefore, you need to practice talking about your own boundaries, and you should start doing this even with small things. Did you feel that something is going wrong? Did you feel that a conversation, for example, with a friend somehow causes you discomfort? Say, stop, let's now consider what's happening. This doesn't work for me. This is not beneficial for me. This is unpleasant for me. Don't do that. And of course, you need to talk about your own boundaries using the well-known I statements. But if you see that I statements don't work with a person, it means that such a person might possibly have a narcissistic personality disorder, because healthy communication methods do not affect such people. They still break these boundaries, they don't listen, they ignore. So here's a signal for you. If your boundaries are being broken, you might be dealing with a narcissistic person, but you need to understand where your boundaries are. So you need to work on this. And the third point on my list of how to establish these personal boundaries is to write a blacklist. I've talked about it many times in my videos. You need to write down what no one is ever allowed to do to you under any circumstances, even if it's your parents. So write down a list of things that no one is allowed to do to you. For example, no one can yell at you, manipulate you, or devalue you. And then everyone will have their own specifics. Analyze this list and see how well it is adhered to in your interactions with those around you. And then the fourth point follows. Because in the blacklist, we make no exceptions. We say, stop, no. We say no one can treat me this way, not even parents. But if you are codependent with your parents, it means that separation has not occurred. And you need to go through this separation. You need to start by setting boundaries with your own parents, because if you don't, people with narcissistic personality disorder will keep appearing in your life. Because the victim, the cause of a narcissist, projects the parental figure onto the narcissist. And what a narcissist can offer and what they tempt you with are precisely parental functions. And a person with an immature psyche might not notice certain things that are unacceptable. Because the narcissist demonstrates, I am a wonderful father, I am a wonderful mother. Therefore, separation from parents is very necessary for every person. And what does this mean? That you can say no and stop to your parents without feeling guilty. If you feel guilty or pity your parents and break your own boundaries, it means that the umbilical cord, the psychological umbilical cord, has not yet been cut for you. The fifth point, in my list of recommendations on what you need to do to avoid attracting narcissists, is to learn to be happy in solitude. For people who cannot stand loneliness and are afraid of it, entering into relationships is contraindicated, because this is the kind of hook that a narcissist will always use to catch you. He knows that you are afraid of being alone and will mock you because he knows that you won't go anywhere, that you won't leave him, that you will endure everything just to have someone by your side. It doesn't matter who, even a person who mocks you, a person who causes psychological and even physical abuse. Very often, people who are afraid of loneliness choose toxic relationships to avoid facing the abyss and inner darkness that opens up before a person in a state of solitude. That is, you need to go through this state of loneliness, be alone, and feel that you are a whole person, that you can be happy regardless of whether someone is with you or not. So, let's move on. What is next on my list of recommendations for people who attract narcissists? And this is the sixth recommendation. You need to learn to see the details in a person's behavior. Because as we know, the devil is in the details. You need to learn to see these details, the red flags in a person's behavior, and not ignore them, not push them out of your consciousness, but learn to piece them together into a complete picture, to clearly see who is in front of you. The seventh recommendation is to learn to stay in touch with yourself and not rush into that pleasant, euphoric, and romantic merging. Any relationship that develops very quickly has a pathological development scenario. That is, it is a sign of a pathological relationship. They started quickly. On the second day, he told her that he loves her, and by the third day, they started living together. Well, I'm exaggerating, of course, but even if you started living together after a month or two, it's quickly developed relationships, so most likely they will be destructive. And if you develop relationships quickly, you don't have time to understand who is in front of you. In this hormonal surge, you stop seeing some real things, some warning signs, and you quickly get involved with a person with whom you cannot build a relationship. And it's worse when a child appears very quickly as well. The consequences of such relationships are, well, very dramatic. The eighth recommendation is to learn to be aware of your feelings. You need to stop doubting that you feel something. If you question your feelings, it's a perfect foundation for gaslighting to occur. That is, you will be made to believe that your feelings are wrong. So the first thing you need to do is learn to trust yourself and trust your feelings. And in order to trust your feelings, you need to know the basic feelings. You need to be able to distinguish what you are feeling at the moment. The ninth recommendation, do not take on a victim position. If you don't like something, even if you're afraid of losing the relationship, don't take on a victim position. Say no and stop. And see how he perceives your boundaries, your no and stop. And if you see that, after you have said no, the person continues to pressure you and insists on having things their way, then most likely you are dealing with a narcissistic person. And the 10th final recommendation, be very attentive to whether the person is being themselves or if they are presenting a very idealized image. If everything seems perfect, this should be a red flag for you. And one more point, one more sign. If a narcissist quickly starts creating a shared fantasy for you. This is a fantasy about your wonderful future, with many promises of how they will make you happy. This is, well, a fantasy where only she, the narcissistic person, can make you a happy person. This shared fantasy is like a drug. It draws the victim in. She believes it and stops noticing any alarming signs of the partner's behavior. And, very often it's like a merging where a person stops feeling their own emotions, their own needs. There's no difference between where I end and you begin. We've merged into one, like a child and mother. And very often such partners say, I am the best partner for you, only me and no one else. Or it's also trendy now to say, we are twin flames. This is very alarming. So this shared fantasy, the narcissist quickly paints it for the victim, and the victim believes and falls into this trap. So, if you notice that you often attract narcissistic individuals, it means you need to work on yourself more. And I ask you to like this video, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Any of your activity greatly helps in promoting my channel and motivates me to create more and more episodes for you.